and welcome to Finance Conversation. This is the 40th episode of the Merging Life and Money Show. I am delighted to be here today. For those of you who do not know me, I am your host, Marie-Jo César. I help professional women bridge the gap between life and money by acquiring and applying the relevant financial skill and knowledge they need to take control of their money, manage their finances, and understand that they can live their best life with the money they have. Thank you for joining in today. If you are watching the replay, make sure to type hashtag replay in the chat and leave me some comments and questions. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. I come to you live every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to share valuable information about how to achieve financial wellness and live your life with means and meaning. Today, we are going to talk about what happens to your estate plan when you get divorced. So to address this very important topic, I have with me Anne Michelle, which I'm going to bring in. Anne Michelle is an estate planning attorney from Washington State. I would say that her passion is to help families and small businesses for the future by securing their estate plan today. So she makes the confusing understandable and explains the financial risk of not creating an estate plan. Welcome, Anne, to the Merging Life and Money Show, and welcome followers and listeners. Thank you for joining in today. So
Thank you for having me.
And a notebook, as you would want to take some notes to discuss this matter further with family members. Very important, because it is about sharing values that could benefit others. Okay, so let me start with a few disclaimers. Okay, everything said in the Merging Life and Money Show is for general, informational, and educational purposes only. It is not intended to constitute legal, tax, accounting, or investment advice and should not be relied on for tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult with your own tax, legal, and accounting advisor before engaging in any transaction. Okay? Always. I will also say that estate planning before, during, and after divorcing varies from state to state. So make sure to check with an estate planning lawyer when reviewing your estate plan. Okay, over to the show now. Let me say that whilst getting divorced is emotionally taxing, you must not ignore your estate planning responsibilities. Okay, the final divorce decree takes care of the financial and the legal issues that come up naturally with the divorce, but it does not change your estate planning documents. Therefore, it is very, very important to revisit your estate plan if you had one when you were married, or create one if you never had one. And this must start from the time that you decide to get divorced, because a lot could happen in between there, right? So remember, planning for your future is not something you should put off. So to help us navigate through the impact that divorce has on your estate plan, Anne Michelle will focus on 3 points this afternoon. She's going to look at the effect that divorce has on an estate plan, period. And a lot of it will be done from a Washington State perspective. She would talk about the importance of revisiting your beneficiaries on certain documentation. And she will also talk about your assets, okay? How to go about retitling them. So before turning it over to Michelle, and Michelle, I will say that if you do not take the necessary steps your ex, the necessary steps of your estate plan, your ex-spouse could be the one making some very, very important decisions that may be in total contradiction with your current and future wishes. So over to you, Anne. Tell us about the effect and the impact that a divorce may have on one's estate plan.
Yeah, this is a really critical area. Every state has different rules and different laws. Most of the states don't invalidate your estate plan when you sign the divorce papers. Washington is a little unique. The minute you put ink on those divorce papers, everything in your estate plan is gone. It invalidates and nullifies your entire plan. So if you're planning to get divorced, you need to think about what was in that estate plan that you had while you were married, because it's going away. You need to think about getting a plan shortly after you get divorced to make sure that your new plan covers all the contingencies. The last thing you want is to be giving your ex money you don't want them to have. The other thing to think about, and this is really important if you have kids, you need to follow whatever the divorce decree says about dealing with the kids in your estate plan. So make sure that you have a copy of those papers when you go see your estate planning lawyer.
Okay. So from what I understand, right, a divorce is not something that you wake up this morning and say that you're going to do, right?
Right.
So
Right.
People have to be very careful and think about that estate plan way ahead of the time that it will take for you to be handed your divorce decree.
Correct.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about what you must do even before filing for divorce?
There's a lot of things you need to think about. If you have a house, as soon as you sign those divorce papers, your house is going to go from a joint tenancy with right of survivorship to a tenant in common or a tenant by the entirety. So it changes the character of that title. And if you're going to end up, or if you're going to fight for the title, you have to understand that as soon as that divorce ink dries, you need to retitle that into your new name, and you need to decide how you're going to handle that in your estate plan.
Okay, so we'll take a look at this in my third question. But the point that I wanted to drive is that that one must not wait until the divorce is totally finalized to say, oh, I did have an estate plan, and maybe I should take a look at it. So because it varies, doing my research, it varies a lot from state to state. So
very, very much
I just
so.
want to let the audience know that it is so very important to, the minute that D word pops in your head and you're going to go ahead with it,
you need to find out what the rules are in your state.
Totally.
Yes. You need information is always more valid if you have it than if you don't have it. In order, because there may be some things you want to negotiate in the divorce based on your knowledge of what's going to happen with that estate plan. If the estate plan is going to be held, if you're in a state where it doesn't invalidate the plan, then you need to negotiate with your ex how you're going to change either the titling, insurance policies, all those kinds of things. So knowing what you can and can't do in your state specific will help you determine how to handle the divorce.
Correct. All right. So thank you for that, and Michelle. I mean, the thing that we don't think about, we think about the emotions and all that kind of stuff. But yet again, if there are kids involved, we got to think about that. As I said, the legal part is taken care of with the decree,
right?
But not that part that eventually involve the kids, in the long run.
Right.
There are documentation that you must have that form part of your financial plan.
Correct.
And some that comes up to mind would be life insurance policies in particular, could be all the documentation that you put in place for through powers of attorney and the likes. So tell us about beneficiary changes as it relates to a divorce and an estate plan.
Yeah, a lot of people go, oh, I got the divorce paper. I've got it all signed. Everything's taken care of. Yeah, your bank account still has a joint on there. So both of you are on it. That needs to be fixed. If you had life insurance where each of you was insuring the other one, you both need to think about who your new beneficiaries are. And if they're your kids, you probably need to make sure that you have some sort of trust in place to make sure that if something happens to you, the life insurance doesn't go to your spouse. It actually goes to you or to your kids and a trustee. And you also need to make sure that you don't end up inadvertently giving your ex-spouse control as guardian over the kids, which means they have control of the money. That doesn't turn out very well, especially if you have a non-amicable divorce. In addition to that, you have to think about some other policies like your retirement account. Who's going to get your retirement account when something happens to you? Again, that needs to be retitled properly, and the beneficiaries need to be put in there properly. If your kids are still minors, again, you need a trust so you don't inadvertently give your ex-spouse control of your retirement funds because the funds are meant for the kids and he's the guardian of the kids. So just be really careful about that. Make sure everything that you own that's an asset is retitled and looked at. You can't change this before the divorce, but once that divorce is final, you should be on the phone like within the 24 hours changing that.
Yeah. And ours, we are turning means dollars, right?
Yes.
And we are all looking after our dimes as much as possible. So through the whole process of estate planning, some people have put in place trusts, and that you mentioned before. Right. What happens if one has an irrevocable trust in place?
Washington is kind of odd. If you have an irrevocable trust that you made as part of your marriage, that doesn't invalidate because it is irrevocable. You can't change it. There are ways, and it's pretty complicated. If you have an irrevocable trust and you get divorced, you absolutely need to see a lawyer right away that's an estate planning attorney. There are ways to transfer the assets that are in their irrevocable trust into a new irrevocable trust, and in a process called decanting. It's pretty technical. You absolutely cannot do that by yourself, but that also requires information in the divorce decree as to how the assets in the irrevocable trust are to be allocated.
Okay. So that sounds very technical, but people have it in place, and they must remember that they did it, particularly when we talk about great divorce, it's a lot of these happening. Correct. And you have built tremendous assets. You got pension plan involved, and some pension fund themselves have specifics when it comes to how can a now ex-spouse could claim on a pension benefit acquired, through the marriage and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to put that out here. So yes, it is emotional. Yes, you want to get out of a relationship and all the rest, but remember that it took years to build that relationship, and along with it came a lot of stuff, like what happened if I'm incapacitated. All of this is documented. In some state, this disappears, goes away with the divorce. So this means that you have to put new documents in place. Right. And in some state,
it gets held. And then your ex-spouse is making decisions about your end of life care.
Totally. So the thing that are not obvious, that we cannot see because we are so driven by the whole emotional thing and the breakup and the separation and all that kind of stuff. So we have to be mindful.
And as women, we tend to, we make less than men to begin with. So we have less, once we get divorced, we have less assets than the men do anyway. But we tend to shy away from conflict, which means if there's a conflict, we usually throw our hands up and walk away. You are literally taking money out of your own pocket and giving it to your ex. Please don't do that. Even as complicated as it is, and even as confrontational as it is, please go to the proper divorce attorney and a proper estate planning attorney so you get every dime you are entitled to. Totally.
And that is very, very important. So, I mean, this show could go on and on if we had the time. So you did mention retitling earlier. Is there anything else that you want to add about that?
Just make sure that with the courts and divorce, they may order something called a partition, which is either selling all or part of the estate or the house back to you. So let's say you and your spouse have a house, and the court's going to award one of you the house, but they want you to pay the other spouse part of it. Well, then that's a whole negotiation in the divorce proceedings about how are you going to, quote, pay for it, which could mean trading assets in a retirement account or taking your name off life insurance, however you negotiate that. But then that title is supposed to be in your name. Please don't forget to retitle that in your new sole capacity as the only owner of the house.
Okay, that's a very good a good point that you made there, because as I said, great divorce is on the rise. And by then you would have acquired, fixed asset like property, houses, whatever you want to call that, as well as your pension plan, as well as a very healthy savings plan. So make sure that all this is taken care of ahead of time, so it does not convert into a fighting match where the biggest winner, and Michelle, is the attorney.
Well, in worst case scenario, I have a friend who got divorced and they were still dickering about two houses that they owned. One of them had been her mother-in-law's house, and one the couple had bought while they were married. And it's now 15 years past their divorce, and they settled everything but the housing, and they finally did it this year.
Wow. So you see
don't do that. Please don't do that. That's an emotional roller coaster.
Totally. So thanks so much for that. I'm going to wrap it up some. It was short, but very interesting. We talked about how divorce affects your estate plan and how it could nullify it totally, and how it's important to check with an attorney in your state as to how this works the minute that you think about proceeding with a divorce. Okay. Beneficiary changes. Okay, some state will allow you to do it after the divorce. Some state, anything that is insurance, etc., you could do it without any problem. But in some states, it's not the case. So you may want to check that as well. As well as if you have acquired assets, you want to make sure that those assets are retitled. Correct. Okay. So again, thanks, and I'm going to leave you with those last thoughts. So make sure that an estate planner is part of your team as you navigate through the divorce process, right? Mm-hmm. This Correct. Is perhaps the most important part of your plan. Yeah. An estate lawyer, an estate planning lawyer can review the divorce settlement and look for any gaps, right? So are you protected from state and federal estate taxes, for example? What is the impact of the divorce on your retirement account beneficiaries? You got to look at that too. Are you and your heirs adequately provided for in the event of your ex's death? Okay, all these things are really important. So what about your wishes for the children if you pass away while they are still young? Okay, mm-hmm. So divorce attorneys have a different set of concern, and many are overlooked. They may overlook a lot of these key considerations. They are your divorce attorney. They are not your estate planning attorney. Okay. Correct. So lastly, be sure to hire your own estate planner rather than continue with the attorney who drew up the plan when you and your spouse were married. Okay. So again, and Michelle, thank you so much for your awesome contribution to the show today. These are things that they are not top of mind, but they are mm-hmm. so very important in order to have a great future after a terrible situation. So I'm really looking forward to having you on the show next month. So we have a date for the 24th of February, and we will continue to share valuable information about estate planning. Okay, so before I forget, Michelle, would you like to give the audience your contact information should one wish to contact you?
Sure.
I also have a banner for you. Let me find it, and I will show it. I think I got it. Yep.
There we go. So
Uh-huh.
you can find me at www.heartlawestateplan.com. You can email me at heartlawpllc@gmail.com, or you can call me at 206-641-6014. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. If you're not in Washington State, I can probably help you find an estate planning attorney, so don't hesitate to call me or email me.
Great. Thanks again so very much, and see you next month.
Thanks for having me.
So for more information about how to achieve financial wellness from the inside out and live a purposeful life with the money you have, join me next week, Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Atlantic Time for my Bermudian pips, 10 a.m. Friday, Brisbane, Australian Time for my Australian friends. Thank you for being here today on the Merging Life and Money Show. I am your host, Marie-Jo César. I will be back again next week. Until then, continue merging life and money. Bye for now.